I've got a really good feeling about Russia, which is why I'm off to get this done today. England champions 2018.
Welcome to the greatest show on earth.
Hello, Dobro Pazhalavat, Ver Moskvu. Welcome to Moscow, where the 21st World Cup gets up and running this afternoon. The build-up has been politically charged and marred in controversy at times. So as the football begins, the Russians are well aware the eyes of the world are watching. And will be based throughout the tournament right here in the heart of the capital in Red Square. The Moskva River is just behind us. And that building in the distance, one of the Seven Sisters, a group of skyscrapers designed in the Stalinist style. Now, this is our camera on the rooftop of our purpose-built studio, and we are within touching distance of the beautiful and ornate St. Basil's Cathedral, built in the 1550s by Ivan the Terrible. And there's the Kremlin, the seat of Russian power. It's a truly spectacular backdrop. And the Luzhniki Stadium hosts the opening ceremony, featuring our very own Robbie Williams in about an hour's time. And then Russia take on Saudi Arabia in the first game of the World Cup at 4 o'clock. So that's where we are, and four men never short of an opinion are with us in the studio throughout the afternoon and the World Cup. Gary Neville, Slaven Bilic, Ian Wright and Lee Dixon. Gentlemen, we're going to have a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us. Lee, let's just touch on one thing we need to before we get on with the football, which is the backdrop, the political situation between the West and Russia. Racism continues to mar the game here. There's a lot at stake for Russia above and beyond the football pitch in the next month as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they definitely need a good tournament. I think sometimes footballers are put in a bubble and we're away from everything that's going on. I think everybody's aware of the political situation and what's going on, but now it is football's time, and the World Cup's here, and it's always exciting leading up to that first game. I think we've got, sometimes you want to pick a different game, but I think Russia, Saudi Arabia, it'll be entertaining, that's for sure, because they're both a lot at stake for both teams, especially the Russian side. Yeah,
but Gary, it began even yesterday with Spain, one of the favourites, sacking their manager before we'd even kicked a ball. Lopetegui's been sacked for signing a deal with Real Madrid. A month after signing a deal with Spain, was he naive to think he would get away with that, in effect?
Maybe he knew he wouldn't get away with it, but the pull of Real Madrid, the money, obviously there would be an increased contract. What I would say is that big clubs tend to pay lip service to the national team in terms of the importance and the relationship, but there isn't really a relationship between the big clubs and national teams in countries. When push comes to shove, the big clubs will look after themselves. Yep. And they'll make sure that they do the best for themselves, and they won't care what the national team wants. And it's another example of that. Obviously, we've all been on both sides of the camp. So we've played for our countries and we've obviously played for our clubs. But the reality of it is the clubs pay the wages and they think that they're most powerful. And it's probably the same in England, has been over the years. And I actually think that the Spanish Association have done the right thing. I think it's about time that associations stood up to what is, to be fair, a form of bullying in some ways in terms of disrespecting them.
Well, you've been a national manager and, of course, a club manager, so you don't blame the Spanish FA for saying this is unacceptable. You were about to manage our team in the World Cup.
Yeah, they had to do. I'm sure the Spanish FA didn't want to do it. They wanted to keep Lopetegui, but it was impossible with the power of Barcelona and Real Madrid. It would be totally strange. When I was quitting Croatia after Euros, I said it, but I said it five weeks before the tournament. Like pre-season. Now it was, and there's also a bit of it's Spanish FA, it's a big FA, so they gave him a new contract after the qualifications, which is like a standard for Spain, nothing major. So they thought that they've been let down a little bit from the manager.
They're so good, they might be all right anyway without their manager. So what do you think it'll have much of an impact on the Spanish team?
I think that the way they play, I don't think it will, and they brought in a real legend in Heroes. So you have to say that the way they play, and is it going to cause them a problem? You know what I mean? Slav could probably manage it. You know what I mean? It's one of the... No, I'm just, all seriousness, you know, they're a team that know exactly how they play. They're a fantastic team. And, you know, if any team can deal with that kind of disruption at this stage, it's them.
I think accountability is the word that I would use, because how many times do we see things happen in football and we go, there's no real end punishment, and I think the fact that this has happened now and they've sacked him, I think it's brilliant for football. It might not be great for the Spanish team right now, but I think they'll get over it. They've got enough experienced players to do so. But the accountability that somebody's done something and they've actually stepped out of line and they've actually got punished for it, I think that's a good thing.
We could argue this is the most open World Cup in a long time. So let's leave Spain in there. Who do you fancy at this stage? I mean, lots can happen the next 30 odd days, but who do you fancy?
I think it's always open, and to be honest with you, the tournament always goes in different directions than you think at the beginning, until you start seeing the games. I thought France 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, but then I look at them and now I always think that they tend to sort of can shoot themselves in the foot. You never know, it's brittle, the spirit in there, and it can turn quite quickly if things don't go well. And then you start thinking about the fact that who do you trust? I trust Spain, I trust Germany, because I see it tournament in, tournament out over the last 10, 12 years. They deliver, they come here, they know how to navigate the way through a tournament, so you then can't come away from that. The others are what I would call punts.
Now, Gary, you've got to pick one.
I've got France.
Are you going
No, it's right that the tournament is always open.
Yeah.
But only few countries have won the World Cup. And they're all big countries, you know. So for me, it's you have Brazil.
Yeah.
Well, in my opinion, you got Brazil, you got Spain. And then you have France, and then in my opinion, you have Germany, and then you have 5 or 6 teams,
Yeah.
England, Croatia, Uruguay, as you said, Belgium.
Yeah.
But with them, it's if Griezmann score goals, if they click, if that. With Brazil and Spain, for me, it's
Well, this is why
realistic.
it's so exciting, because we're making cases for 3 or 4 already. Where are you going?
He didn't give one, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to I took Brazil because that was the first one. I took your first answer.
Brazil?
Yeah, Brazil.
Brazil, Spain.
When you look at Brazil, I would like Gary. I quite like France and the fact that in every department they've got players that could, if they turn up. What are you going to say?
I'm not saying anything.
If they turn up, they could do it as well. But I'm probably going to go for Brazil. They look like the team, and when you look at the way they play, the way they are, how jovial they are in training and everything. With the fact that Neymar is somebody who, you know, he looks like he's ready to go.
Yeah.
You know, he's had a couple of years off with PSG, another 3 months before the tournament.
So he's fresh.
He's fresh. I think I'm going to go Brazil.
So we've run out of time, so I'm just going to say Brazil.
Well,
Good
Brazil
luck.
they are the favourites, Brazil, at the moment. Whatever happens, it promises to be quite a month. And for the current generation of players, it's a chance to write their names in World Cup folklore and follow in the footsteps of the illustrious stars of the past.
The beginning of the journey. How long will that journey last?
I said I'm okay, I've been better, not sure if it's paradise. And if it's the small things that matter, then maybe it's where it lies. But oh, we're looking for keys to this world. Left my high rise, look back and said, oh, though I still believe that there's more to the sunrise. But sometimes I let go, I lose track of the days. I get caught in my high life, no, can't quit to the blaze. I go back 'cause I'm meant to, I lost count of the days. I get caught in the high life, still caught in the high life. Sometimes I let go, I lose track of the days. I get caught in the high life, no, can't quit to the blaze. I go back 'cause I'm meant to, I lose track of the days. I get caught in the high life, still caught in the high life. Will I be your number one? When it's
And the World Cup always provides such memorable drama, and doubtless there'll be more of the same over the next few weeks. While Russia get the tournament underway against Saudi Arabia at the famous Luzhniki Stadium, where Manchester United beat Chelsea, of course, in the Champions League final 10 years ago. Wales manager Ryan Giggs scored the crucial penalty in the shootout that night. He's pitchside for us this afternoon in the company of the England striker Eni Aluko and Jackie Oatley.
Yes, very happy memories of the Luzhniki Stadium. for Ryan Giggs in particular. His penalty sandwiched between John Terry's miss and the penalty saved by Van der Sar from Anelka. But that was the Champions League, Ryan. This is the World Cup. There's some debate amongst players as to whether the World Cup has perhaps lost its place in the priorities to the Champions League. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think obviously the Champions League is a huge competition, but if you were to ask a player, what would you rather win, the World Cup, the Champions League? I think everyone would say the World Cup.
Yeah, that's something that Harry Kane has said, isn't it? And Ennie, you're a veteran, if I may say, of 7 major tournaments with England and with Team GB in the Olympics. You know what it's like to play on the opening day and to be in the hotel watching as a player. What is it like?
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. Obviously, I've been there 2012, opening the London Olympics, women's football. We opened against Cameroon, and it's just that weight of excitement and that anticipation. The whole nation is watching you. But once you get out on the pitch, you've just got to treat it as a normal game because it can really get on top of you. And I'm sure that's what Russia will feel today as well.
I bet it will under the pressure of this lot. But Ryan, as the Wales manager now these days, what are you expecting and what are you looking for in this tournament?
Well, I'm looking for different trends. Obviously, Denmark are in our Nations League group, so I'll be keeping a close eye on Denmark. But what I always like about the World Cup, there's always some superstar who comes out of it at the end of it. Maybe who you've not seen before, or not heard too much about. So I'm looking forward to that. Maybe a James Rodriguez from the last World Cup. So a young player maybe who, you know, is the star of the show.
Maybe a Toto Scalacci type from Italia 90, still some of our favourite World Cup that was. But from this match, Russia versus Saudi Arabia, so much pressure on the host nation, not because there's any expectation from the fans as to how they'll play, but they want to get off to a winning start. What do you think the approach of each side will be?
Well, I think for Russia, there's obviously a lot of pressure, and they're 2 of the lowest ranked sides. I think for Russia, there's been a lot of changes in their team defensively. The 2 centre-halves have had ACL injuries. There's been 10 changes to the back line in the last 2 years. The manager has changed to a back 3. So I think defensively, they've got to get it right today. I think for Saudi Arabia, they've scored a lot of goals in qualifying. Their striker El Salawi scored as many goals, joint top scorer with Lewandowski. So going forward, they're obviously very good. And I think so. It's going to be tentative. I think for the first half, but I think Saudi Arabia will look to score goals as they've done in qualifying.
How do you see it going, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's huge pressure on Russia being the host nation, and they're not in good form, haven't won for 7 games. So with the whole of Russia with their eyes on this team, and not a great team if I'm honest, it's a big game for them, and they'll want to obviously to get off to a winning start.
They will, and that would certainly help because they're looking to avoid becoming the worst host nation in the history of the World Cup. They've got their President Vladimir Putin to come, the opening ceremony, and then finally the 2018 FIFA World Cup will get underway here in the Luzhniki Stadium in Moscow at 4 o'clock UK time. Mark.
Thanks, Jackie. More from Jackie and the team in the stadium after full time on what should be quite an afternoon in the Russian capital. And after the break, we all know there's going to be at least one massive refereeing decision here in Russia. So how will the introduction of VAR go down at this World Cup? Eleven cities across Russia will host the 64 games of this World Cup. The Luzhniki Stadium in Moscow and the St. Petersburg Stadium in the north will be the most used, with 7 matches at each. The Russian enclave of Kaliningrad, squeezed in between Poland and Lithuania, is the most westerly city. That's where England played Belgium on June the 28th. Some 3,000 kilometres to the east, the Yekaterinburg Arena lies close to the border with Asia. And in the south, the Fish Stadium in Sochi, scene of the 2014 Winter Olympics, becomes only the second venue after the Stadio Olimpico in Turin to have hosted both events. England played their first group game against Tunisia on Monday in the new stadium in Volgograd, and then they travel north to Nizhny Novgorod to face Panama 6 days later. And the final is back at the Luzhniki Stadium on July the 15th. And to be revealed, there it is. This is what they're playing for the World Cup. That's Iker Casillas on the left, Spain's World Cup winning captain. from 2010. OK, FIFA's decision to introduce VAR to the World Cup for the first time has sparked plenty of debate. Mark Clattenburg ref the Euro 2016 final, and he's with us during this World Cup to make sense of it all. Mark, great to have you with us. Let's start at the beginning. What's VAR going to be used for here in Russia exactly?
Well, first of all, it's very, very important technology for FIFA because we can't have a big mistake like we've seen in other World Cups. So there's four main areas, but the two main areas, first of all, is every goal will be checked. Every penalty will be checked. So every time there's a foul, a handball, maybe the ball out of play and offside, they will be automatically checked. You'll also have every send-off, but not a second yellow card. So only the direct red card. So not all yellow cards, because a second yellow card, if you issue, it means every yellow card will have to be looked at, because what happens if the first one was a mistake? So that's why they made that decision. And the final one is mistaken identity. So if a player is incorrectly sent off, the other person will be corrected and rightly sent off.
Pierluigi Collina on the UEFA Refs Committee says assistants shouldn't flag for marginal offsides. Why is that?
And it's important because if there's a marginal offside and maybe the back leg's playing him on, it's so tight for an assistant to make that judgment call. And if he gets it wrong and puts his flag up, normally what happens is the player normally stops, the referee will blow his whistle, the players will stop, and therefore the chance to score a goal doesn't happen. So the advice to the assistant referees, when it's tight, to keep the flag down, allow the play to continue. If it goes wide of the goal, it goes for a goal kick. Therefore, it's play on. It doesn't affect the game, because the most important thing is if it enters the goal, as a goal's been scored, it's then being checked for offside and it can be put right. And that's the most important thing.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not going to hear this dialogue, are we? And people at home are used to, in both rugby codes and cricket, to hear the dialogue between the on-field and off-field officials. Why should we not get to hear that?
But there's arguments both ways. I'm for the argument that it should be transparent. It should be that you'll be able to hear what's being said at the right times. Because you know what? The fans, the media and everybody in football wants to understand, are we looking at offside? Are we looking at a handball in the build-up? And that's what is most important, so everybody can concentrate. And then the final answer, what has been looked at, how it was looked at, and what the final decision is. But I know FIFA today, on the big screen, in all the stadiums that will be used for the World Cup, they will show the message of the decision that's been made by the video assistant referee.
And just a quick one, is it true that all the officials in their booths, the VAR officials, are going to be fully dressed in ref's kit?
Yeah, they're going to be in their ref's kit. I was even thinking about wearing my ref kit here for ITV today. But no, I thought I'd put a nice suit on. But no, they're going to be using their ref's kits and be ready and act like a match official.
Yeah. Full kit. Yes, there we are. Yes, there we are.
Yes.
Right, easy. Anyone against VAR?
Nope.
No?
It worries me simply because when Mark said there that every goal will be checked, your first reaction when you score, that worries me. Yeah. Because
worries you as a goal scorer?
Well, I just think that you're going to have in your mind, is that a goal? Is it going to stop the celebration? It's just...
Having stood next to him when he scored, nothing's going to stop that celebration.
But, you know?
Yeah, but you know
we
what?
Need it, of course.
Of course. Nobody likes it, those kind of things. But this is... VAR is it's very important in the league. But in the league, you have 38 games. 38 games. You have 37 games to make it up. This is, you have 3 games. One decision, as you said before, it's a killer. And it's not only about manager's job or whatever. This is a World Cup. It's about the country. And so I'm a fan. I don't like it, the stuff you said now. Okay, that. Nobody likes it, to wait for 1 minute. But at the end of the day, it's a fair decision. And they have to speed it up. If they speed it up, brilliant.
Improvement in accuracy is perfect. I think it's just the execution of how they deliver it into a stadium or into football. I think that's the thing that's been the problem, the sort of execution of how to actually do it.
Oh, it was rubbish this time last year. You and I sat through the Confederations Cup. But as Gareth just said, there's nothing wrong with it in theory.
No.
And like everything in life, you practice it more, the better you get at it.
Well,
so that's what we hope for.
You do have to practice it. They did practice in the Confederation Cup. And to be honest with you, it was really hard from a broadcasting point of view, because every game there was 3 or 4 incidents, and it was every single time we went to half time, and so they were getting it right. I think they will get it right, and I think the reasons for doing it are absolutely perfectly right, and it's just that clarity that that we've talked about getting the actual process right, and so everybody understands it. And what Mark said on there, that's all that fans want as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark with us throughout the tournament. And after the break, we're going to hear from a man who's been in the eye of a media storm in recent weeks. Raheem Sterling has fought his way to the top and learnt the hard way about life in the spotlight.
Every time I do get a setback is, how do I go from here? Where do I go? And, you know, I never panic. I try to think what's the best thing for me and try to do that and achieve that.
If you miss any of the action at this World Cup, do catch up with our daily show on the ITV Hub, which includes some classic recreations from the F2 freestylers. You can also download our World Cup podcast featuring extra interviews and chat, and follow us on Twitter to watch goals just seconds after they've gone in. Our Instagram account will take you behind the scenes, and our dedicated website will bring you all the latest news. With all this coverage, you won't miss a thing from Russia this summer. Raheem Sterling grew up under the shadow of Wembley, but his journey from angry young man to Premier League star has been beset with obstacles. As Gabriel Clark reports, the Manchester City winger has dealt with everything that life has thrown at him and always come back stronger.
As a player, I'm developing each year, set myself standards and levels I want to reach, but every time I do get a setback is, where do I go from here? I never panic. I try to think what's the best thing for me and try to achieve that.
Somewhere along the line, things got complicated between England and Raheem Sterling. No English player achieved more last season than the boy born in Jamaica who lost his father in a shooting and who was brought up by his mother on the St Raphael estate, next to the home of the game.
This is a tattoo of Wembley Stadium. As a young boy, I used to walk around Wembley or be on my bike. Hopefully one day I can be wearing that 10 in that stadium, be in my hometown, and hopefully be the king of Wembley one day.
Okay boys, bring it in quickly.
A Friday night in Kingsbury. Alpha Omega Boys Club train in all weather.
Chuck it in boys, let's go.
So this is where it all began for Raheem Sterling?
Yeah, right over there. Came in at 8 years old. We knew we found a gem.
He was the person that got me into football.
Diamond, top, side.
He was referred to us because, you know, he had some anger issues. Didn't know how to lose. Uncontrollable when it was about losing.
Yeah, I had a really bad attitude for that. You know, if I didn't win a football match, I really took it to heart.
Just relax a bit more. Let's go.
The worst moment for me was playing for Brent one day, and I got substituted and we were losing, and started to throw stones on the pitch.
Did they finish the game?
No, I got banned for 6 months.
But listen, gradually see him changing as he went along. You know, it was just great to see.
He was a mentor for me. He was someone that, you know, came in and kind of got me calmer. And he's brought that element into my life, and I'm forever grateful for him.
Within 3 years, Sterling was Liverpool's youngest ever player and one of England's few stars at a World Cup. Driven by a singular ambition that saw him sign for Manchester City, by the end of Euro 2016, his story had a new subtitle.
Just gone for a big money move. I was 19 going 20. Took on probably one of the biggest football clubs in the world. I was ready for the pressure, but I didn't expect some of the things that I seen at that time.
He thrives on that challenge to prove people wrong all the time. There's a focus about him, there's a steeliness about him. He's won a league title now, he's scored his highest number of goals in a season. He's on to now the challenge with England and how he makes that a success.
Football's really about goals. No one really remembers the skills unless it then ends up with a goal or an assist.
Number 10's World Cup preparation has been played out against a particular backdrop. Critics say he hasn't helped himself, but he's been through worse.
At first, when he gave me the racist remarks, I was, you know, totally calm. It's just, okay, yeah, move on with it. Then my daughter comes into it, it's a completely different scenario, it's a completely different situation. So that's when my blood really started to boil. And it's just a day that, you know, hope to forget and never see again.
He got a tattoo of a gun, then it's been put on the front page of the newspapers ahead of the World Cup.
It's personal to him, and I know his journey, I know the history behind, you know, the death of his father. I think we can support him and our team a lot better.
How do you compare to the Raheem Sterling that went to his first World Cup 4 years ago?
Oh, I wish I could have, you know, met some of the people I've met earlier. You know, you're young and I don't need ice bath. I don't need this. I'm young, I'm fit. Trust me, forget all that. You need it.
He is resilient, quick to put things behind him, to concentrate on the things that he can affect. With England, I know the desire he's got to make this tournament a success, and we believe in his ability.
Yet romance underpins this story as much as resilience. The boy from Wembley who's not about to forget where he came from, because it's given him the strength to get this far.
We drive past there every day to pick him up. I kept telling him he'll be playing for England. It's a phenomenon.
One message I'd like to give is just be confident, everyone, not just the players. It's a World Cup and everyone here. It's what you've wanted to do from your little kid, and have that belief that probably some people didn't have before, and enjoy it.
From a Wembley estate to Wembley Stadium, Ian, as one London boy to another, what do you make of this story?
It's a familiar story. The thing with what Raheem's done is that he's broken through. He's had a lot of trauma when he was younger in respects of personal tragedy, and he's had a lot of stick of getting into the game and what happened when he left Liverpool, and the way he's dealt with all the problems he's had has been fantastic. And I think that what he's learned all the way from his childhood to now is that he's learned from mistakes. Now, even like people gave him a lot of stick for the tattoo, he gets a lot of stick for a load of rubbish. But what you have to say with Raheem and the way he's bouncing back is what people should focus more on. Yes, the tattoo could be something that you think, well, maybe in hindsight, but the fact is, what he's done to get to this point at 23, with everything what he's been through, is remarkable. And that is what people don't focus on enough.
I mean, you know well, obviously, from your time with England, the last two tournaments. Listen, I hope we all grow up between 19 and 23. How much of a different young man do you see now, just even from watching that sort of interview?
A huge difference. I think that you wouldn't have seen him do an interview like that 4 years. He wouldn't have been capable. He wouldn't have wanted to do it, but he wouldn't have been capable of doing it.
Confidence go?
Yeah, the confidence and the belief. I think that he's someone who does make mistakes, but he's young and he accepts that he makes mistakes and he could have done things differently and done things better. You hear his coach talking very well about him as a kid and having to suspend him for 6 months and things like that. So he's obviously somebody who has had vulnerabilities, and I saw him in the early years of working with him with England as someone who was vulnerable, who needed to improve his confidence and his belief, but he's playing out in front of millions of people, his mistakes. Normally for a young 17, 18, 19-year-old kid, they're able to just grow, naturally make mistakes behind the scenes and then emerge into a working life. This kid's having to do it in front of us, in front of the media, in front of everybody all the time, and the biggest thing is his improvement as a player. Because you can talk about the character, let's get on to it. The improvement as a player in the last 12 months is unbelievable. And that's the biggest thing, because I actually questioned probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, working with him, whether he would ever gain the consistency to be able to perform at the highest level. I had doubts, but the more he played like he did last season, you remove those doubts. He's now a goal scorer, he's now an assist. He's got to deliver that now in this tournament for England. That's the big thing, performance.
So we have to obviously give Pep Guardiola a lot of praise for that. And there was a scene at the beginning of the season where you saw them on the training ground, didn't you? And you could see him shaping his body to when he received the ball, working on the minutiae of the game.
Definitely Pep with Sterling, of course. Yeah. But what Pep has done, Pep likes to play positional football. And sometimes positional football is not good for the players who are full of energy, who are pace, who got the space. For Raheem Sterling, what Pep has done, he put him in the right position. He taught him to be in the right position, and he taught him timing to run, but he didn't kill his pace and the energy. So it was a perfect balance, and that's why he had a great season last season.
Yeah. But 2 and 38 for England. We talked about this at Ellen Road the other night.
Yeah.
Marcus Rashford 3 and 19. Interestingly, Lingard 1 in 12. Welbeck 16 in 39 is actually in front of goal, by far the most prolific for England. But it feels like a Sterling-Rashford debate. That's assuming that Rashford is fit enough next week.
Yeah, if he is fit, I think personally, I think it is between those two who gets that spot. And it's something that's always going to be thrown at him when he's not scoring for England. And he plays in a totally different position for Man City. He's getting his goals from wide areas, coming in at the far post. He's not a great finisher. I look at Wrighty and go, he's a great finisher. Sterling's got to learn that. Sterling's got to learn that side of his game, and he will do. He'll get better, and he has got better. We've seen that last season. But the England play a totally different way with Rashford in the side and with Sterling. So we saw against Nigeria in the first half how he dropped deep and created space in midfield. The space opened up in front of him, and he made those runs. He made space for Ali to run into the holes as well. So they play differently, but I'm a big fan of Rashford, and if we do need a goal, and it's not coming from Harry Kane, then where do we get that goal from without putting Welbeck on from the start of the game? And I would suggest that Rashford just nips it in that.
So it's not a straight comparison then, because England played a slightly different way, is what Lee is saying, whether it's Sterling or Rashford.
Yeah, they do, and I think Marcus Rashford is naturally more of a goal scorer. We're just picking up a point that Slaven said about Raheem in terms of Pep working with him. He's got discipline off the pitch, it being an issue, and constantly being focused on Raheem. I think actually working with Pep and actually giving him a discipline, telling him what to do and when to do it, I think it's been important for him on the pitch. This idea that you can just throw him in at England and say, right, go and cause some problems, very invariably doesn't work. You need some direction, you need some guidance of where to be, when to go there.
Yep.
I think that's what Pep's given him this year, and that's why I think he's improved. He needs that direction.
Would you say that Rashford is the most, of all four of those, Lingard, Welbeck, Sterling and Rashford, would be Rashford the one that you would trust most in front of goal?
Yeah, I do, because when he blasted onto the scene, he blasted onto the scene in that position, right up front, in the middle, making runs, scoring goals. And the way he played against Costa Rica, you just saw the confidence continue to build in him, and he's got himself into positions where he got the opportunity to shoot because the space arose, and he took it. And I think that when you look at someone like Sterling, we saw him score a great goal against Southampton for Manchester City to win the game at the death, but it's a natural thing that comes to Rashford that doesn't really come to Sterling, because he's coming on the end he's getting on the end of things and coming on and finishing off stuff at Manchester City, and that is why I think that Rashford and the way he played he took the headlines.
Yeah. The other big breaking news from the England camp is that Love Island has been added to the television channels that they can watch in their Rapino resort. Are you familiar, Slav, with the cultural phenomenon that is Love Island?
No, to be fair, I'm not. And I'm glad I'm not.
That makes five of us, I think. Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I did see a clip. I did see a clip of them talking about Brexit, the girls, and that was pretty intense.
Gabriel will be embedded with the England team throughout the tournament, bringing us all the latest news and developments. And ahead of the Tunisia match, the players know just how important that first game is.
Well, England's base camp is by the Baltic Sea in the resort of Repino, 25 miles from St. Petersburg, where peace and tranquility shouldn't be a problem, and neither should boredom. If England can do that rare thing and win their opening match, something they've done just 3 times in the last 15 tournaments. So what a boost a victory over Tunisia would be for this young squad and their manager, who still has a couple of key decisions to make. Eric Dyer or Jordan Henderson? It would appear to be either or. Is that about right?
I think that's what the manager said earlier on in the week. So it depends what the manager wants really, and what he's seen in the last few months, and also the games and training that we've had here.
Every day I will try to train to the best of my ability, like I would if I already knew I wasn't playing or I was playing. It would be no different to me. The manager's been a calming influence, I think, on everything, not just the players, the staff, the media, everything, you know. Sometimes I think those things get too much attention.
We feel as though everybody's behind us, you know, we've shown through togetherness and enthusiasm within the group that we can maybe come here and do something special.
Sum up the importance of an opening game victory.
Yeah, very important. I think that was one of the big things I learned from the Euros, the Russia game. If we had won that game, things could have really went a different way. You know, to lose that game, how we did in the
draw that game.
Draw that game. Sorry, yeah, draw that
game. But it felt like a defeat.
It felt like a defeat. That's probably why I said it. It felt like a defeat.
This morning's training was preceded by a minute's silence, a year on from the Grenfell disaster. Before England began to fine-tune their preparations, Dyer versus Henderson is one of the key decisions. The other is in defence, with England set to play a team similar to the one that beat Nigeria 2 weeks ago. And Marcus Rashford, who's been carrying a knee injury, should be fit to train tomorrow. Another boost in what's been a remarkably smooth preparation campaign so far.
And fingers crossed it remains that way. Gabriel will be the England team throughout the tournament. And after the break, we're going to look ahead to the opening game of this World Cup. The host Russia, the lowest ranked side in the tournament, and they'll be desperate to get off to a winning start against Saudi Arabia. Oleg Salenko made history for Russia at the '94 World Cup when he scored 5 in a game against Cameroon. The Russian class of 2018 would love to kickstart this World Cup with a few goals today against Saudi Arabia. Frankly, any win would do, as they haven't won any of their last 7 games. Let's head to outside the Luzhniki Stadium again, where our reporter Seema Jaswal is soaking up the atmosphere.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, it is so surreal to finally be stood outside the Luzhniki Stadium for the World Cup. Now, this stadium has largely been restored for the purpose of the tournament, but it still has managed to retain that historical facade. So 81,000 fans are set to arrive here today, and we're all very much looking forward to the opening ceremony, where a familiar face to all of you at home will be headlining, and that is Robbie Williams. And I caught up with him just after his rehearsal. Robbie, you're here and you're about to perform at the opening ceremony of a World Cup. How excited are you?
I'm incredibly excited. There's an awful lot of things that have happened through my life that are pinch yourself moments, and you can get a little bit blasé about stuff that happens on the regular. Then all of a sudden something like the World Cup comes up. It's been a boyhood dream to play here on one of the teams, and if I can't play here on one of the teams, then to be given the honour of opening the whole thing feels incredible.
And I guess as a football fan yourself, it must make it even more special.
Yeah, of course. You know, this is the pinnacle of football life. This is the eyes of the world are on this tournament, and never more so than my eyes are always glued on every single match of every World Cup. And I'm here and I'm backstage and I'm about to go on there and open it and sing in front of 80,000 people in the stadium and then billions of people worldwide. It's a pinch yourself moment.
Certainly is, and this is what dreams are made of, right?
That's right.
So in terms of your soccer aid team, they did very well, didn't they? You must have been proud of the boys. Do you think our England team are going to do as well?
It's been disappointing, lot being an English supporter. Our qualifiers are all sort of, you know, boring, but we win and they do their job and it's great that they do. But then we get to a World Cup final and we'll score a goal within 8 minutes. Vardy will put one in or Harry Kane will put one in. And the whole country in unison will go, we're going to win the World Cup. And then the opposition will score and it'll be a 1-1 boring, drab result. And so on and so forth. And so it goes. But I'm praying for a miracle.
So I can confirm that Robbie Williams is actually going to be performing for free today, and I caught a bit of the rehearsal and it's looking pretty special. So another question I've been asked a lot is, what's the security like here in Moscow? Well, at the ground here today there's a team of about 5,000 private security and police officers, so all we can really focus on now is the football itself. Now, no host nation has ever lost their opening game, so the pressure really is on Russia to get off to a winning start.
And the pressure is on because their record is awful. Now, Slaven, you managed here in 2012-13 with Lokomotiv. Here's the case for the prosecution why they're so bad. No win in 7, ranked 70 in the world. The Moscow Times says we're doomed to fail. Your old teammate Andrei Kanchelskis, the worst team in my lifetime. Rubbish in the Confederations Cup last year. The accusation is the quota system. There have to be 5 Russians in every starting lineup. It means they don't have to work hard enough because if they don't get in the team, they'll get sold to another Russian club. They don't have to go abroad because they're well paid, etc., etc.
Okay, but it should be a good rule. And still, for me, we are talking about it's a good rule because you want your youngsters who are emerging to play, not only to train with Gary Neville, with Lee Dixon, with Ian Wright. You want them to play. So there's a rule, same as in Turkey. When I was there, it was 4 Russians had to be on a pitch. Then now it was 5. It was changed then. But it's not working. But for some reason, and it isn't working in Turkey also. So for some reason, they are not good. Still, they had to bring from retirement Ignashevich, who is 38. He's going to turn 39 now because in 6 years they couldn't find a proper centre back. If you ask me why, I don't know why that's happening, but it's happening, unfortunately.
But these rules are brought in for the long term, aren't they? Not just for the short term. I wish it would come in the Premier League and that you would have, say, 5 or 6 British players have to be in the starting 11, and that I think looking at Premier League, we actually are blessed with great foreign players, and we need them in the league. But I think 50-50 is about the right mix for what would be a global league, but also making sure that you get the young players coming through. Exactly. You look at the England squad now. You're looking at a pool that there's no sort of surprise anymore when you pick the squad.
Well, it's 33% are available of every Saturday.
Yeah, and there used to be a decision to make 20 years ago. There were big names being left out of England squads. Now, you're not getting to that point anymore because the talent isn't there. The players aren't in the Premier League.
But the counter-argument is that you got much better with exposure to Eric Cantona. You played with a bloke called Bergkamp, you know. You pass the ball to Bergkamp up the wing.
But that is the point. I mean, if you look at our youth teams at England level, international level, all doing really, really well. And Wenger once said to me, there's a three-point development of players, and that's finding the players, then the progression to get towards the first team, and then the biggest one is getting them in the first team. And he said he said that's the hardest thing, is getting them into the first team.
But Gal, you mentioned about Loftus-Cheek having to leave Chelsea, go to Palace to get into England. What's got to happen is that at some stage, I don't mind that if we could get into something where we do like a certain amount of English players playing, like Dicko said, with the youngsters we've got coming through, we've got world champions at those levels, and they're just going to fall by the wayside.
While England or Britain remains in the EU, of course, employment law will determine against that, but it could change, of course.
But the good thing is that example with Loftus-Cheek. I used to have a Russian. He knows he has to be in a squad. Maybe it's easy. Yeah. If I don't play in Lokomotiv, I go to Zenit. Yeah. Loftus-Cheek, he had to work hard. He had to leave Chelsea, go to Crystal Palace, play for Crystal Palace. So he's working hard. It's a good thing about that. It's a competition. So he knows, if I want to play there, if I want to play in Chelsea, if I want to go to the World Cup, it ain't going to be easy. But I have to go to Palace, I have to work hard every day, and then that brings out the best of the players.
Slav, I have to ask you, do they care enough, the Russians?
Now they care. Now they're under enormous pressure now. But I know in a history, which is not good for such a big country, such a huge country, and they love Russia as a country. But for some, the players, they don't have that willingness to play for Russia. And that was their biggest problem.
OK, we've got 35 minutes till kick-off between Russia and Saudi Arabia, but coming up after the break, the opening ceremony. We've heard from him. How will Robbie Williams go down with the Moscow crowd? Now we have such brilliant technical boys and girls. Look, we are inside the Luzhniki now, and they're building the stage ready for Robbie Williams to go. We've obviously got Egypt and Uruguay in this group. You like Uruguay, don't you?
I do like Uruguay. Gary's saying I'll be too scared to say it loud, but I ain't. They're my dark horses.
Yeah.
They're my dark horses. I feel that they've got a lot to prove as well. I think Suarez is somebody who I really admire. I feel he's somebody that has got a big World Cup in him. I think he's only got 5 goals or something, but I think he's got a big one in him. I fancy Uruguay to do something.
There are a couple of teams saddled with the golden generation. Gary doesn't like that term, no. The golden your Croatian boys, this is their last chance, is it not?
Last chance, yeah, for a few of them, definitely. We have a mixture of experience, because for the likes of Modric, Rakitic, or Luka, 5 or 6 of them is their 5th big tournament. And they are still very, very hungry.
Yeah.
And we have some youngsters. We got pace. On a paper, we never look better. Never look better. Lovren, Chorluka, really good team, brilliant team. Rakitic, Modric, Padel on a wing side. If we click, I said it's very simple story for every team. The whole team has to play good, 14, 15, 16 players. But 2 of the players on a key position, they have to play the football of their life. That's why we won the bronze medal. We all play good.
In 98.
But goalkeeper made 5 great saves, and Shukar scored 6 goals.
Yes.
Without him scoring 6 goals, we wouldn't be in a...
So let's translate that to another golden generation. Courtois plays brilliantly, and Lukaku or Hazard the other end, the Belgian golden generation have a chance.
Yeah, they do, but we've got to see something from them, because every time I watch them, everyone's talking about them, and individually you put them all down on a piece of paper and you go, wow, what a group of players. But it's just something they've got to show you. Now's the time for that team, and I really believe if it's not now, then it'll go the same way as the other golden generations.
Yeah. Well, who are you fancying apart from those? We've named a few. What about the Germans?
Never write the Germans.
Never write the Germans off. But they haven't been.
They're not an underdog, are they?
No, they're not an underdog, but they haven't been brilliant. But they've reached the last 6 semi-finals of major tournaments.
Just have a method of how to deal with tournament football. They book the final hotel in advance. They think they're going to the final. They know they're going to semi-finals and finals. They have no problem with arrogance being levelled at them or complacency. They're just prepared. They're prepared to win, and it's every single tournament. And no, you can't write them off. It's a cliche, but you can never.
They're talented as well, aren't they? They've got some.
For me, it's a good story. 2012, Poland and Ukraine. It was a draw, and they picked a hotel in Poland. before the draw. And I spoke to them at the draw, to Birov and to Lev, and I asked them how you don't know where you're going to play. Maybe that you're going to play in Ukraine. He said no, but we're going to play the semi-finals in Poland.
Wow.
That mentality.
So they've done that all
I think I've got
mentality.
better one than that. In Euro 96, we couldn't get our final hotel that we wanted because the Germans had already booked it. That's a true story.
Mentality.
Wow.
The mentality, they're just prepared.
So
They're in front all
get
the
your
time.
booking in early is the answer.
Yeah, exactly. And if you like France, there's a suggestion tomorrow that Dembele, Griezmann, and Mbappe is going to be their front three.
Wow.
No Giroud when they play their first game.
Is that your team?
That's your team, yes.
That's your
you
team.
weren't too well, you were sure.
Yeah. OK, the World Cup nearly upon us. Before that, though, it's time for the opening ceremony, which mercifully for some is going to be short and sweet. So let's go inside the Luzhniki Stadium. Then he'll be commentating on the game in a few moments' time. I'm only sorry you missed Ian Wright singing throughout of that. That's the pomp and the ceremony. Robbie in good form, wasn't he? Now the football can begin. We're 20 minutes away from the start of another World Cup, and the biggest names are itching to unleash their powers.
After months of preparation, heroes from all
Every
different
4
nations
years,
assemble
the stars
the
align,
greatest show on earth.
united at one place on Earth.
Heroes from all nations.
The greatest talents from all different nations, with extraordinary powers.
The 2018 World Cup.
The heroes have assembled.
Harry Kane has carried out a rescue act. Kane! He is Superman. He's got the golden touch. There is a new superhero in town. An explosion of the exceptional. Absolutely magical. He is ridiculously good. Simply irresistible. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. This man is something else. Modric! Oh, yes! Is it a bird? Is it a plane? Nah, it's Griezmann! He is a phenomenon. Just magnificent. Ronaldo! Oh, that's special!
So we're getting ever closer. Let's have a look at the teams for this opening game. And Russia beset by injuries, missing two key centre-backs and Cocker and their striker as well. Ignashevich, age 38, we mentioned him already, hauled out of retirement to play in defence. Former Chelsea left-back Yuri Zhirkov starts, and Alan Zagev was the joint leading scorer at Euro 2012. Fyodor Smolov, their most likely source of goals. So that's the Russian lineup for this opening game. And looking at their opponents then, Saudi Arabia, their manager Juan Antonio Pizzi played for Spain at the 1998 World Cup. Saudi Arabia haven't won a World Cup game since '94, their first appearance in 12 years. And a couple of names to look out for them. Mohamed Al Salawi scored 16 goals in qualifying. And the Saudi Messi, everyone has to have one, but he's on the bench. Fahad Al Molawad only makes the substitutes this afternoon. I want you to tell everybody what you said to me last night when I said, we all love the Champions League, it's great, but the World Cup.
Yeah, Champions League is great, Premier League is great, Serie A is great, okay, until you feel and watch and see the World Cup. World Cup is something different. It is, you can easily say it is more than football. And it means to countries more than football. The prime ministers, the presidents, the leaders of the country, they are giving a farewell to go and represent our country. And it's massive. Absolutely. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I mean, you've won the Champions League, you played in finals, you played in 2 World Cups as well. How would you compare that step up in terms of pressure and intensity and excitement of a World Cup?
That's the thing, the intensity, the scrutiny. Everyone is the best prepared they can ever possibly be as a player coming into the tournament, which makes it the toughest tournament. And that's the thing that I think most of the World Cups that I've been part of, the toughest tournament. The one that's most difficult, the one that can give you the biggest heartache at the end, which it invariably did. But tough, really tough. The travelling, the demands on the players, endurance of it, and everybody is at a really high level, and it's all condensed into 1 month. And like I say, you've got to be a real tough, resilient, brilliant team to win it.
It's the dream,
It's the World Cup, though, isn't it?
It's the dream, man. It's the one. That's what, you know. That's when I was younger. That's what I always wanted. Unfortunately, '98 when I done my hamstring, I know you've heard it all before, but
Yes,
You wouldn't have gone anywhere, I don't think.
I think I would have gone. He told me. I went in the room after Gazza, got told he weren't. But the fact is, it was the dream. It was to play like Gary with the best. The preparation in isolation to try and bond and win the greatest, for me, greatest tournament in the world.
Yeah. Well, like Ian, I never went to a World Cup too. Sorry.
Yeah, but I was really close to it.
That is different, you know.
That really hurt.
Yeah, but
really,
when the
I didn't
Champions
mean
League
it.
became a bit stale, you are watching the same teams, playing same teams,
Yeah.
and you like it. I like. But this is a bit different, you know. If we are expecting now to see Messi and Ronaldo, we ain't going to see them. But we're going to see different kind of football a little bit.
What's
So
fascinating?
you've got to be prepared for everything.
What's fascinating about me is that even the big players, as Gary said, the big players will be nervous as well going into these games because of that pressure. And we're already talking about, can France go to that next level, be that team, can the Belgium, and they've got some world-class players in their team, but we still don't know going into it, and we don't know how Brazil are going to react after getting thumped 7-1 last time out in the World Cup. So it's kind of like there's still all of those unknowns because it's a human game and humans are frail at times.
And if you talk about the individuals, the real individuals stand up when they're playing for the country. Because if you think about, say, Harry Kane or Neymar or Messi, can they deliver their club performances for their country? Invariably, sometimes they don't play. As you always have that thing with England over the years. Why can he play like for his club and not for England? Because it's tougher. It's more difficult.
And it's even tougher, is it, playing for England than playing for Manchester United in the Champions League?
You've not your own surroundings, you've not got your own teammates, you've not got the familiarity. The spirit is different because you've not got that same bond. You've got players from different clubs. How do you come together as one and be cohesive? That's tough. And that's why it's higher demand on a player playing for his country than it is for his club.
And Ryan Giggs said it earlier. You know, James Rodriguez was a star in many ways 4 years ago, which we would never have predicted. So we can't sit here and say Messi or Ronaldo or Kane or De Bruyne or whoever, Hazard. We just don't know, do we? Which is the
Griezmann.
thing. At a time when we do know far more about football than 20 years ago, because international football is on our television screens all the time. We still don't quite know who that star will be.
We don't know, but but nowadays it's going to be very difficult that one player will play the best football and he's going to be the player of the tournament that we don't already know.
No, but I'm not saying he's an unknown, but he may be sort of below the radar in some ways.
Of course, definitely. Yeah. It is always like that. Every World Cup, not only James Rodriguez, it was this guy Salienko who scores for Russia. It was Shuker 98.
Sure.
They're always those kind of
Scalacci,
players.
no one would have said that in Italian 90.
Exactly.
We all thought it was going to be Vialli, someone completely different.
You just look back at people like Maradona and Pele and people like that. Even Zidane, when Zidane were going into Ronaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo, when they go into it with even more pressure than anyone else. Like you look at someone like Messi, the pressure that Messi is under in this World Cup, I don't think anyone is under as much pressure as him.
I think you're right. I think Messi's the one that stands out miles for me because of he's carrying a nation on his shoulders again, and it probably will be his last World Cup. So huge amount of pressure on him. But you know what? He looks like he can deal with it, to be honest with you.